Go.
Okay guys, today we are going to be working in pairs. We're going to have thought partners, idea partners. So if you will please find the person who has the same letter as you on your sticky note and go to where I have designated.
Brandon, you my buddy?
Yep, I'll come over here, so.
Today. Katie, you got C.
You're over here, Josh. Okay. Your team label's over here.
There's actually two right there. Oh, sorry. Here, I'll be C. And just like I'll move.
Okay, so if you will please, really quickly, close your eyes with me. Just close your eyes, and I want you to envision some kind of fictional, surreal world. Some world, much like ours, where teachers and parents can communicate. The teachers are calling the parents during the day and saying, oh, your child did such a great job today. Look at all these things that they've achieved. And the parents are calling the teachers at night saying, oh, look at my child doing the homework. It's some fictional, surreal world where communication works so perfectly. It's kind of like Desperate Housewives or something like that. Okay, open your eyes. Okay, this is reality. Now, keep that idea though, because we're going to go back to it. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about parent involvement in their child's education. So,
Make sure that it's show green on the side.
okay, so now when we're talking about parent involvement in education, it's kind of explicit, but what we're talking about is a consistent and active involvement in their child's education. Okay, now this can be facilitated by you guys, right? You guys are the teachers in your classroom. Now also there are some school practices that are going to get or attempt to get parents involved. But the focus is going to be on what you guys are doing, okay? So, we want to know why parent involvement is important for the student, and also why it's important for you guys, the teachers, okay? So, with your partners, really quickly, if you could just take 2 to 3 minutes, I want you to think of all the benefits for the student in regards to how they're performing. Think about if you've got, we're going back to that surreal world where, you know, your parents and teachers are collaborating very efficiently. What improvements in student performance and, whatever is taking place? So think 2 to 3 minutes, come up with as many as you can, and we'll do a little activity. I'll tell you what, here's some paper for you guys to write your ideas on. Yeah, benefits to the students. Right. Benefits for the student.
Whatever's at home. Whatever's in school.
As many as you can think of. Think about activities that are going on in the school. Think about our activities that are going on at home. How would the student be improving in these activities? What are some of the things the students have to do? Or required by the school? Okay, you guys pretty much finished up. What's the most number that, or the largest number of things that anybody got? Anybody get 3?
We got
We got
3, 4?
We got 4.
Okay, well I have 6. So what we can do is we can go around and get everybody's, or get what everybody came up with. So give me what you came up with. Just give me one for right now.
They'd be more motivated externally to do well in school.
Okay, so you said external motivation?
Yes.
Just external?
Well, yeah, it could be internal, especially if the parent and teacher communicate, and the teacher would have a better understanding of what the students enjoy and how to prepare the lessons. To generate internal motivation.
Okay. Team B? What's one of the ones that you came up with?
They'll be more apt to complete their assignments.
Homework, okay, so more willing to do homework, okay? Team C? Just one.
Well, just the accountability between school and home, since that communication's in here.
Okay. Could you give an example?
Well, like the Misunderstood Minds video, when Lauren was working on the project and she was doing the part at school, but she wasn't getting the part done at home, the research, she was needing to be that, have the parent and teacher
Okay.
communicating.
Okay. So you're saying, in terms of the workload they have to do?
Right.
Okay. Team D?
That's similar to what I said, was staying consistent standards and expectations between home and school.
Expectations. Okay, so parent expectations, teacher expectations, they're becoming more harmonized? Okay. All right. Well, these are the benefits that I came up with, that I found in looking in some papers. So students are, or they see improvements in their achievements in general, their achievements in school, scholastic achievement, as well as their willingness to do homework. You guys said that. And so, they're having, like you said, more accountability between home and between the school. So that might affect their overall attitude, their behavior, might improve that. They're attending class more regularly. That's really important, obviously. If they're attending class more regularly, that could very well contribute to their increased performance. Responsibility, again, that's going along with the accountability. They're being more responsible for the work that they have to do. And self-regulation, okay, familiar enough? One of our teaching goals. So self-regulation is kind of the conglomeration of all of that. It's your willingness to set goals for yourself, but it's also combined with the expectations that you have upon completing those goals, your thinking processes and your strategies that you're going about completing those goals, and definitely your behavior about how you're going about completing those goals, your attitudes towards it. So all of those kind of combine to increase your self-regulation. Now, interesting fact, what do you think about benefits as a teacher? Can anyone just think of one benefit for a teacher and for the increased communication between school and home?
Well, you have that support at home, like for what you're doing in the classroom. So it makes your job a little bit easier because you don't have to battle two conflicting views.
Mm-hmm. And that's tying in with the accountability that Team C came up with. Okay. How about Nolan?
Also gives you a great insight into where the student's coming from, what they're dealing with outside the classroom.
And that's definitely important. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you're getting a better insight into the home life of the student. Okay. Anything else? Well, teachers actually they're more likely to report positive feelings about teaching when communication with the home is greater, and it really is a result of all of these things, for sure. Like you said, their workload, their accountability is kind of spread out. When parents and teachers have the same expectations for the student, they're more likely to be met, because you have that influence going on at home and at school. Okay. So I'm going to do another activity. In your same pairs, think about some strategies that you could come up with to, and first we want to talk about some strategies that the school implements. Okay, so school-wide strategies to try and get parents involved in their students' education. All right. I have 5, so see how many you can come up with. Take another 3 minutes, talk amongst your team.
And like on top of that, it's like school interventions, in case his student is struggling with those school grades.
Think about what the sport might require you to do throughout the year to keep in touch with parents. So how might every school require you to keep in touch with you?
Parents of those kids that aren't necessarily parents. Because you want to make sure that maybe class, but I'm not really getting it, like maybe I can make myself a little bit smarter about it, so you want to see what's going on in their whole life too.
Where did you guys get?
Organization.
Okay, so let's talk about these for a second. So I want all the groups to stand up real quick. Okay, I'm going to go through the strategies that I found, and if you had that one, you can keep standing up. But if you did not have that strategy, then have your group sit down. Now these are in order of what I would think would be obviousness. So, okay, first one, open house. Really? Yeah. Okay. Winners for round 1. Okay, stand up again. How about PTA? Okay. Alright, so 3 groups set down. Alright, you can set that down. Okay, parent-teacher conferences. Right, everyone got it on. Okay, good. Now, do those need to be for behavioral problems, for achievement problems? Taylor, why do you say that?
Well, you need to know if they're doing well, and you know if they're not doing well. You need to know if they're acting out, if they're not acting well.
Okay, so you think they should be routine maybe?
Well, just, they should know. We don't know what they know. If we don't know what the parent knows, then we should let them know. Regardless of what it is.
That's the way that.
Okay, next
Just
one.
about letting.
How about report cards?
Seriously?
The teacher report.
That's like GTA, but not report card?
We're supposed to keep grades. That's the process.
Yeah, right, grades.
Okay, and one last time. How about progress reports? Everybody get those progress reports?
No.
Is that calendar? That's kind of sitting right down.
Okay, well those are the ones that hopefully we all saw when we were in high school and even middle school and elementary school. Okay, did anybody have any that I did not get?
Ours was kind of maybe send home a weekly report about what was going to be going on the next week.
So,
let them know how the activities and things were going on in class.
so a newsletter?
Yeah.
Something like that?
I'm just like, we had a newsletter.
You guys can sit down. Any others that I didn't know?
We had, school-related activities such as sports or any other kind of activity where parents are involved and, teachers go to those things that can interact with parents.
So, invitations. Some sort of invitations. Now, it's interesting that you bring that up. How important do you think it is for a teacher to invite parents to activities?
So you can't really report. I know when my son was in high school, there were a lot of things that happened at school that we didn't know about, but the ones that the teacher actually sent,
sparingly and appropriately. Okay. Now, versus a school newsletter that might come, once a month. That's presumably the principal or assistant principal, somebody sending that out. How do you think the two would compare? If it had directly from the teacher, your student brought it home, or the student or the teacher emailed it to you or sent it, how do you think responses amongst parents compare? Do you think it's the same?
Well, school-wide may not directly affect your student necessarily. You may not feel it's important to your kid or to you. But if your teacher gives you something, if your student's teacher gives you something, then you're more likely to look at it and like seriously take it serious.
I seriously think that you're right. And actually research agrees. Research says that amongst parents, there's an article I read about why parents get involved. They said the hardest way to get parents involved, they personally feel that if an invitation to a school function or a classroom function comes from the student, or through the student from the teacher specifically, they're more likely to participate. Okay. All right, more strategies. This time, we're going to talk about strategies that you can initiate in the classroom. Now, I think you guys talked about, maybe not. So again, in your pairs, think about some strategies that weren't up there, you would implement in your classroom to try and get parents involved. That ones that we did not just talk about. Think more creatively, things that you would personally do. Picture it's your first week as teaching. How are you going to initiate communication? And what plan would you have to keep it consistent? Okay, we'll start sharing. Let's start with Team B this time. You guys can come up with a lot.
We had setting up the class calendar schedule. Yeah, for parents, for students, for everybody, and you come up with that hard copy or online, both.
Okay, so a calendar of events. Now would those include assignments?
Depends on how you structure your class. I was like personally in college when they gave us straight out, the full course into assignments and tests on day one. That was always really convenient, but I recognize that that's not exactly as doable in high school.
Okay. Team C?
A strategy that a friend of mine uses as a high school math teacher is every week she'll randomly pick 4 to 5 students and call their parents. And it's not based on student performance or anything like that. It's just a communication. Hey, here's what's going on in class. Kids doing really good. Kids not doing good. You need to work on this. Just kind of touch base with the parents on a regular basis, and just rotate that out. So that you're not always calling the same parent.
Okay, that's a good idea, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. Team B, which one of yours?
Okay. One of hers was sending out a letter beforehand, before school even started.
Doing what?
Sending out a letter to the,
But
To
before
the-
school even started.
just to kind of like, invite them to like the open house, whenever it is, let them know when it's gonna be. and just to kind of introduce yourself and like kind of overview what you're gonna like expect the students. You know, I expect them to come to school with their homework or whatever assignment done or whatever, so the parent and the student, before they even come into the class, understand what the teacher's gonna expect.
Okay. So you're talking about introducing objectives for the class? You're talking about your expectations?
Just kind of like expectations for their behavior within the class and like, you know, getting their work done on time and whatever. Not like a detailed course description, but.
Okay. Teammate? One quick one.
No, well, we had maybe a Facebook or like we said earlier, sending a report maybe through email or something about what's going to be happening in the week. But I think it'd be good before you did that to ask the students what would be the best way to communicate with their parents.
Really important. We're going to look on the schools, anything,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, do these parents necessarily have that internet access, that computer access to get these things? That would be a good survey to potentially take in the beginning of the class. Yes, sir?
Some parents may not even have cell phones or home phones. I mean, how are you gonna get the message out of them? Sure, it'd be nice to give them a phone call if they have one.
So if they didn't have even a phone number that they could call, or
I mean, I would send something home to the student, maybe schedule a meeting with the parent to make sure that they were getting a message about how their students doing. But yeah, make sure the parent can.
Okay. So some of the strategies that I found were, like you said, sending an introduction letter home. That's one of the most common ones. I know I certainly had plenty of introduction letters sent home with me the first day in most of my classes in high school. Now, for me personally, they did not all make it to my parents. But again, this is an attempt. Another way would be to return some graded assignments home. I remember back in 6th grade, I used to get my agenda signed all the time. It was required to have an agenda signature. Did you guys have that too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did your parents look at what was on your agenda before they signed it?
My parents did, for the most part, unless I gave it to my dad, when my mom would read it.
Well, important thing about getting those things signed, agendas or graded assignments, is that they represent some sort of notion that, hey, I checked this out. They're not a guarantee. My dad is 100% Mexican, and he cannot read English as well as he can speak it. He can speak it very well, but he cannot read it as well. So did he read the things in my agenda? Probably not. Definitely not. I would leave it on the kitchen table. And at certain instances, I would just bring it to him, and he would just do a quick signature. He'd maybe glance at it, but he definitely wouldn't read it. So again, high diversity, you definitely have these kinds of things that can come up. So again, signatures, not a guarantee. They represent some sort of honorary notion. Okay, and then calling and emailing occasionally, but like you just said, that might not always be the case. So sending things home through the student if possible, for sure. But I think you also said requesting conferences. Having that face-to-face interaction is the one way you're guaranteed that whatever you're going to tell or whatever you want the parents to hear, we'll hear it, more or less. Okay. All right, so really quickly, because I'm pretty sure I'm running out of time. Some tips for some successful communication. So you should, if it's dealing with, actually if it's really dealing with anything, I think Katie was the one who brought this up the other day, to focus on the accomplishments of the student first, focus on their achievements. Let the parents know what the student is doing correctly. That's the first step in initiating that communication. And also, if you are addressing some areas where the students are lacking, you should definitely be concise and be specific with what you're suggesting to the parents. You shouldn't say something like, it would be really nice if you could check up on their homework once in a while, and just kind of spend an hour with them, kind of looking at their homework. That's not specific enough. That's not direct enough. Tell them to send a signature with their homework or something. Trying to get them to again look at it and at least spend the time. Again, a lot of these things won't be guarantees, but if you offer specific suggestions, they're more likely to comply with that, because they don't have to spend the time thinking, oh, well, what should I do to help ensure. If you're giving them suggestions, then they're going to be, oh, okay, well, I can just do the 1 or 2 or 3 things that the teacher suggested. Check mark, get the signature. Okay. All right. Kind of running out on time. I'm going to try this anyway. So the introduction letter, like I said, is one of the most common things, and I feel like most of you are going to be compelled. I certainly will be compelled to send one out. So I have an example, it's straight from the book, of an introduction letter. And I just want you to think really quickly, what did this teacher do correctly? What do you think she succeeded in doing? And what would you, without a doubt, not do? Or what would you change about this letter? Okay. And talking to your teams again, and we'll just really quickly go over it. Okay, if you guys had a chance to read over and kind of make some notes. Brandon, what's one thing that you noticed that the teacher did successfully, you think?
Successfully, well, I like that she presented what she expects from the students and the guidelines, both in student survival and homework. I don't know if she should call it like student survival, but I mean, I still think that presenting to the parents what she expects out of students is a good idea.
Okay. In regards to the guidelines, what's one way that you could influence a student to feel more empowered by them? What's one thing that you could do when you're actually making this letter to kind of give them some ownership of that?
Have them help.
Have them help with the guidelines?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
The school district that I subbed in back home, most of the teachers did it, not everybody, but they had a classroom contract. Basically, they would sit down at the very first of the school year, and the students and the teacher would work together and say, okay, here's the rules for the classroom. And the students got to have some input in that as well.
Okay, great. So definitely giving or letting students put their input, things that you can agree to. Students would feel like these are fair because I've had my input in them, I've helped construct them. Okay, Katie, what's one other good thing that the teacher did?
I like the parent thing, if they're objective or whatever, instead of asking if their homework was finished, I'll ask to see it and ask them to explain some of it.
Okay. So actually getting the parent involved in the homework process, more or less. Josh, what was one thing that you think the teacher could have improved?
I don't know as far as improved, but changed, period. would be putting your home phone number on that.
Yeah.
Rap sheet. I would never put my home phone number to give to the parent of a student I had.
That-
just because.
That could be a good thing, but if, you know, a parent gets mad at you or whatever, that could be a bad thing too.
I don't see how it could be a good thing at all. I don't want anybody calling me at home. If they want to call me at work, I think that's fine. Sending me an email at home is fine too, but
What if they have an email though?
Right.
I'm still calling at work. I don't think calling someone at home is, what if 30 students in your class?
Yeah.
Jason, why? If you
Multiply it by-
have 30 phone calls
Yeah.
tonight, how are you going to do it?
That's only one class.
Yeah, multiply by 3 or 4.
30 is a lot.
The one-
I mean, even more than that's even worse.
The
Well-
good thing is, you could, if they don't understand the instructions for an assignment and they go home to do it and it's due the next day, how are they supposed to get a hold of you without, I mean, if they don't understand it, the parents can't make, you know, maybe.
I would find some other way of going at it than putting
Okay.
my home phone number on the thing. I just don't think that's a good,
Mhm.
plan. Or maybe have the cell phone designated for that purpose, just not to worry.
Just have it, yeah.
As something that's like in case it happens.
Yeah, or just putting, you know, straight up, one of my professors did, put up straight up time limits on it. You can call his number, but if you call after 5,
I'm not gonna answer.
no, yeah.
So that might be one way to still incorporate it.
It's
And
not that big.
personally, I think it is kind of important to have that method of contact, just because they might not be able to call you during the day. A lot of parents will be working, you know, 9 to 5, or, you know, past the time that you've left school.
And to add on to what you're saying, I gave when I first started teaching, I gave my phone number out to my students. I had a student call me 11:55 at night, said it was an emergency, he couldn't figure out the answer to a question. That's, I mean, the type of thing that I don't want happening with 30 students, especially in a high-need school if you have a parent that's like, they have to turn this into one, you don't understand, I need your help at midnight.
And you could instead get one of those Go phones from Walmart with like just a select amount of minutes, and then, you know, a certain, when, you know, set the time limit, and at a certain point at night, just shut it off.
Right. Yeah, maybe it's.
And I mean, I agree that the home phone number, you know, could be troublesome, but I think that method of contact is important about a way for them to contact you.
And it seems like you guys have some ideas on how to kind of limit that or control it at the very least. There was one thing that really stood out to me in this letter that I would never in a million years put in an introduction letter. If you look at number, go for it, say it.
I know this one. And especially in the schools that we're gonna be working in, evening meal time is a good time.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I take my phone calls from all my students.
And the reason I say this is we're gonna be dealing with a lot of students from single-family homes that don't have an evening meal time with the family.
Absolutely not.
June Cleaver that we saw earlier in the day, you know, that would work back then, but, you know, that's a smack in the face to a lot of kids that eat at school.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree
Their
more.
only meal is at school.
One of the things that I thought was drastically changed was the word survival. Yeah. I mean, for crying out loud, are they going into warfare at the school? I mean, that's such a bad
And-
precedent for the rest of the letter. That's what stuck out to me. It's the biggest thing, like, my kids surviving at high school for crying out loud.
And youngsters. is-
Yeah, youngsters.
Like slang is.
No,
Yeah.
just calling youngsters. That's a little.
But I mean, it is possible that students come from a background where survival can't be taken so lightly.
Yeah, it's
It's a real thing.
Instead of parentheses around the S, first S in the letter.
So there are definitely some things about this letter that I don't agree with. It seems like you guys don't either. But just take into account those kinds of things if and when you're writing an introduction letter. Use your professional judgment and definitely use some of the things we talked about in this class to make sure you're not coming off as that.